So hello to everyone joining us. My name is Lauren Draper, and I am the Middle East Fellow at Churches for Middle East Peace. As we've said, we would love to know where you're from and where you're joining us from. So if you want to put that in the chat, that would be a great space for it. And we are going to start the video very shortly. For those of you who aren't familiar with CMEP, I just want to tell you a little bit about who we are. CMEP is a coalition of 30 national U.S. church communions from Orthodox to Catholic, Evangelical, Protestant, and we are working to engage U.S. policies that actively promote a just, lasting, and comprehensive resolutions for conflicts in the Middle East. We work to educate people in the U.S. about what's happening in the Middle East by elevating the voices of peace builders from Israel and Palestine and the broader Middle East, and then advocating for policy changes on the U.S. level to work for justice and peace in the region. So we're really lucky to be joined today by several individuals who were involved in this documentary's creation or who are very closely working with the subject at hand. And we are going to be watching the documentary that they have made that deals with child detention in Israel and Palestine. So this is a roughly hour-long documentary. It's going to be 70 minutes, whereafter we will be joined by our lovely panelists who are going to tell us more about themselves, the work that they're doing, and the role that this situation plays right now in Israeli society and also Palestinian society. So if you don't mind, we're going to get started now, and we're going to play the video and watch the documentary together. So. All right, thank you all for joining us for that. And now we are going to move into a time of discussion with some of the people that made the film possible and some people working in the field. And so I just want to kind of let people know that if you'd like to ask questions, it would be really wonderful if you could ask them using the Q&A feature, and then we can have the opportunity to ask them to those who are here on the panel. So if I can give a brief introduction to who we're joined by. First, I want to introduce David Wachsmann, who was born in northern Israel near Lebanon, but now lives in Tel Aviv. And he works on these films where he deals with social and political issues that motivate him to take action. And David was the director of this documentary. So we're going to hear from David, and also Moria Shlomot, who is the CEO of Parents Against Child Detention. She is a member, of the Tel Aviv City Council, and she has practiced human rights law, served as the general director of the Public Committee Against Torture in Israel, the Counseling Center for Women, and has been the director of Peace Now. And so she's worked very extensively in this field on the ground, and we're really, really grateful to have both of them joining us. So I'd love to ask you both a question to sort of get started while people are formulating their questions and hopefully asking them in the chat. Starting with you, David, could you just give us a little bit of a background as to what led you to making this film and why you decided to sort of tackle this heavy topic? And then we'll ask the same question to you, Moria, of why this film is important to you.
Yes, hello, good evening to everyone. I'm very happy that you're here. Well, it all started almost 7 years ago. I met Neri Ramati, the lawyer who is interviewed in the film. And he asked me if I want to join him to military court to see what's going on there. And it was the first time that I basically saw in my eyes the mechanism and how it was the first time I saw kids, basically 12, 13, 14 years old, go one after the other to court with hands and cuffs on their hands, on their legs. And it was very shocking for me. I wasn't really expecting to see what I saw. And from there, it all started when it's roughly 30 minutes from my house where the court is, which is also where the prison is. It's just one next to the other. And when we came back to Tel Aviv, I asked Mary, how come I didn't know about it? How come it's 30 minutes from my house and I almost didn't know about this phenomenon? And he told me, okay, so go ahead, do something about it. And I started the research. I went for research almost 3 years. And I worked with producer Yoav Roeh and Orit Zamir, who are the main producers, and also with Mohammed Babai, who was started as a researcher and became a co-producer. He was supposed to be here with us today, but unfortunately he couldn't join. And so we started working, and I basically started working by myself, and then Mohammed joined. And yeah, that's how it all started. And of course, there is I'll continue soon.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's a really interesting kind of propelling towards telling this story. Moria, you've been working very deeply with this issue for a long time. Can you just tell me kind of what this film means to you, or how this has maybe added to the work that you're doing, or helped tell some of the story?
Of course. So hi, everybody. For us, it's good night, but for you, it's good morning. 5 years ago, we established a new organization that we called it Parents Against Child Detention. And the founder, she's actually a social worker. And she's a good friend, and she's very much involved in the community of human rights. And she was suddenly read an article about child detention, about 13 or 14 years old boy from the West Bank that had been detained, and all the process that he's been going through from his detention until he had a hearing in court. And she was so surprised that she never knew about the issue of child detention in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. And then she gathered a group of activists and parents that have been involved in the human rights discourse. And we find out that even us, that we are, as you mentioned before, are really involved in occupation and in the occupation issues. We never really open our eyes and focus on the phenomenon of child detention as something that it's a policy. It's not something that's happening randomly or sporadically. It's something that we, the Israelis, the Israeli force, are doing it every day and every night. And we took on our shoulders the mandate or the goal, the aim to spread the knowledge and to raise awareness to really gain a struggle against a child detention. And last July, really almost 1 year ago, it was the first time that the movie of David Wachsmann was screening on the Jerusalem Festival. And we realized that this movie, it's like a treasure or a gift for an organization like us that really doing our best to expand the circle of the people that will know, first of all, will focus their sights and watch the reality as is. And since then, I mean, if to be more particular, so on November, the new government was established, and then the Minister of Cultural, he was declared that he is against the movie, and he really like to, he's intend to take the budget from the movie retroactively. So since this moment, we gather to the production and we are screening the movie all over the country and even abroad sometime.
That's amazing. And that really leads to a question that got asked in the kind of Q&A. which is sort of what has been the reception within Israeli society. For both of you, you're kind of saying that this was a matter that has been heavy on your hearts now, but that maybe you were unaware of prior to, not prior to the documentary, but just as something that you've been slowly made aware of. And it's potentially something that not all of Israeli society is very aware of. So I would love to hear sort of maybe one way that it's been positively received, and then maybe how that feedback has been, or sort of maybe the negative feedback and what you're seeing from Israeli society as you're screening this film.
Well, we basically screen it all over. Like Moria said, we are going almost every week for one screening. We used to screen it few times a week all over Israel. So thousands of people watch it already, just in cinemas and small places and everywhere. And we get all different reactions, but most of the people who come to watch it, in a way, are very open, and they want to hear and want to learn. They come from that kind of, let's say, I won't say left or right, but they're a little bit more open to hear. But we did had some very intense screening as well, more like kind of with people from let's say right-wing audience. I had one encounter with one situation with a lady in Jaffa. We had a screening in Jaffa, and there was a lady came, and she, before the screening, she told me, listen, I just voted for Ben-Gvir, and he, just for everyone who don't really know, he's a very right-wing, from a very right-wing group, and he's a very extreme right, let's say. And she told me, I voted for Ben-Gvir, and then we had a conversation after the film, and she told me, listen, we think completely different. We were completely from a different background. Our roads are completely different, but I take something from the film, and I go to sleep tonight with a different thought, with a different way of thinking. So it made her think a little bit different. And it happened also. Moria can give you another story about two settlers, two women, that also had the same kind of feelings. And so it does. I mean, somehow it affects people. It affects people also from other sides of, yeah, I mean, so yeah.
So if to continue what David just said, we do have some very interesting talk after the screening with people that really weren't really aware that this kind of thing is happening there. But lately, we've got this very interesting story that two settlers from one of the settlements in the West Bank, she wrote to us, two ladies that saw the movie in the screening in Jerusalem, in the Cinematheque in Jerusalem, and they were thinking whether to bring the movie to have a screening in their settlement, because for them, and I'm really quoting what she wrote to me, it was opening eyes. The movie really made her going through a transformation. She told me she never asked herself those kind of questions about the thing that she chose to do, to live, to work in her life, where she's living, what she's doing, with who she's associated. And it's not happening every day to really, put your finger, to really see somebody through his transformation. And it's a big thing. So not all the audience are coming and openly enough to really be honest and to be open to go through a transformation. But we do feel that most of the audience have a very strong effect. I mean, they're affected very strongly by the movie and emotionally. And even for the people that are involved and are activists, the movie gave them a new perspective of the children that living under the occupation.
Absolutely. It's incredibly powerful and amazingly done, David. And I had someone who had worked with child detention in the past who watched it, and they even said it sort of touched on the topic in a new way, and they found it incredibly enlightening and really helpful, painful, but helpful. We have kind of a technical question that I'd love to ask you, which is that clearly the interrogator in the film is speaking in Arabic, and that is maybe a shock to people that these interrogations are actually happening in the home language of a lot of the children who are being interrogated. So can you shed a little bit of light on that, on how these interrogations happen, and maybe just discussing kind of your experience delving into getting those interrogation clips and that sort of thing, because that is sort of a side of it that often people don't get to see.
Yes, I can start, and Moria will continue from the legal side of it. Well, first of all, I cannot share the source. We asked this question every screening. We're being asked, but we can't really talk about it. It's not from the government. It's not from the army. But anyway, I won't talk about it because it's really sensitive. But regarding the interrogations, the interrogators usually they are Druze. Druze. So they do speak Arabic. Some of them are also Jewish, who speak very good, very fluent Arabic, and so that's something which is, it's not a problem. I mean, they can communicate a lot of time. I mean, that's how it's done in the interrogation rooms. But let's say in court, most of the things that happens inside the court are usually going with translators. So no one in court speaks Arabic, basically, not the judge, not the lawyers. No one speaks Arabic. Everything goes above the children's head, and there is the translator who just translate. And he's a very young soldier usually, who speaks Arabic, but he is just translated on the go, kind of. So all the people who take part in the trial, kind of theater trial, don't really understand the language, don't really understand the kids' language. So everything is done in Hebrew. But the interrogations, yes, back to the interrogations. Yes, they're in Arabic. Yes, most of the interrogators, by the way, they're supposed to be how you say it, interrogators for minors, kind of minors interrogated, but most of them are not. They're not. They're just interrogators. So yes, that's about the footage. Yeah.
If you
So,
want, okay. No.
Sorry. I was just going to clarify that you're saying that these interrogators are supposed to be trained in dealing with minors and interrogating minors. For the most part, they're just interrogators solely trained in interrogating adults.
Yeah, they're supposed to be trained to interrogate minors, but there is no there's so many kids. I mean, we're talking about thousands of kids. We're talking about thousands of kids in West Jerusalem, in East Jerusalem, sorry, and 1,000 in the West Bank. So we're talking about thousands of kids every year. So it's impossible to have enough interrogators. And again, it's not just that, it's about the way this system works, which they don't really care about the Palestinian children. They don't care about their human rights. They don't care about their life, basic life. Yeah.
You want to, I just wanted to expand a little bit the answer, because you know that in Israel, there is a youth law that is a quite good law. I mean, quite progressive, with a lot of protection and rights for kids that involve in criminal offense. Probably in all also in the States and in all over the world, there is a youth law that what he's doing is organize the situation when kids are involved in criminal offense. And there is a lot of protection, like children are allowed to bring parents to the interrogation if they are called to be interrogated. The interrogator that will interrogate them is, like David said, he will be a special one that have a special way and means that he was, educate to do. And of course, the kids will have supposed to have a legal consultant, and they are not, the police are not allowed to interrogate them during the night. A lot of rights and protection that's built in the law. But in the West Bank, there is no law. It's the military law. And in the military law, there is no difference between an adult and a child. And that's why from the minute that the kids is like kidnapped from his bed during the night and being handcuffed, and then they are putting his eyes blindfold, and he's taking to the to the police station in the middle of the night and waiting hours until the interrogator will come and start it. It's a chain of violation of rights as kids and as interrogees, because we all have rights when we are dealing, involving in criminal offense.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is such a heavy topic, and we have sort of a heavy question to add on top of it. The question is, the matter of administrative detention has been raised in the last year heavily, and this discussion of people kind of being dragged into interrogations or imprisoned with little evidence against them. Question then goes with children, how often are you finding, or have you found in your work, that children or kids are brought in by mistake or with little evidence against them, in comparison for, these children that are brought in for throwing stones and that sort of thing?
Now in the Israeli jail, there is 10, I think. Now it's a large number of kids that are staying in administrative detention. Most of the time, and like 700 adults. So most of the, and I was involved in escort a case of a kid. He was 16 years old and he was very ill. I mean, he had a very difficult disease, and he was detained in an administrative detention for 1 year. Amal Nachle, sorry. And it took a year for him to be in this situation. Most of the kids are not in administrative detention, but 10 it's enormous. It's a huge number, and it's breaking the heart. it's something that we all should shout and struggle against, of course.
David, I don't know if you want to kind of touch on this subject a little bit.
I want to add just about the kids that are in the film. Currently, Muhammad is back in prison. He's already above 18. He's already an adult, so he was tried for more than 1 year. And sorry, he was just his brother is now in prison. Anas is in prison. Muhammad was just released after almost 1.5 years in prison again. And Anas now is now in prison, and he got back after. Again, he was released and got back and forth. They were like their two brothers. The mother basically saw one of her kids in prison, and then the other one got released, and the other one was taken. They were just like switching between themselves in prison for almost 2 or 3 years. And yeah, so that's their situation at the moment. Adam was also Adam, the kid who is smoking in the beginning, he was also been taken to prison just a few months ago once again. So he was there. Yeah. So they're all back in prison. All of them besides Ali. Ali is the only one who is still out. And hopefully.
It really is a power of documenting this too, and putting names to the numbers and actually getting to see these kids and having to face the fact that they're returning to the prison system over and over. The next question is sort of pivoting a little bit, because many of those watching are in a US context. And in the US, this conversation of child detention is really not happening. And people are often kind of averse to talking about the politics involved in the Israel-Palestine conflict. But this documentary focuses much more on human rights and the rights of children. So, how do you see it playing out, even in the Israeli context, how we can discuss the human rights involved here, and that can take precedence even over the political situation happening. And clearly in the video, there's sort of this interesting pull in between the two. Some people are leaning more on politics, while others are saying there's not a humanitarian crisis happening. But I just love to know kind of your thoughts on human rights versus viewing this as purely political.
Maybe I'll start here, because there is, let's divide it to two. In the States, there is, how you call it, legislation that some of Betty McCollum and other parliament members in the state that promote legislation that will not allow the money to support the money that the USA is sending to support the Israeli security, that it won't be used for child detention. And there is an organization, DCI Palestine and Save the Children, that are focusing on this kind of campaign to promote the issue among the Americans, and to press your government to have a statement here that though the money that is going to the Israeli army, the money won't be used for those kind of things or human rights violation. And it's something that all of you can do by voting in their website, and any time that it's coming to a hearing or a discussion in the parliament, there is a way to be involved, and it's very easy to follow it. It's not, I think they call it No Way to Treat a Child or something like this, and it's very easy to find. In Israel, we are, as Parents Against Child Detention, our main focus is the Israeli audience. A lot of Israeli organizations for human rights are really fed up from the Israeli audience and the Israeli public, and they are speaking to the international community. We do believe that the Israelis public have a crack in their heart for children issue, and that's why we sure that the children issue are something that the Israelis are willing to hear, and that's why we are doing our work very hardly to really spread the message and the knowledge and the data and the testimony and the story. And the international community in this sense can support us in many ways, like you are doing now. What you are doing now, it's an action to support us, to support the movie and to support the issue. And there is many ways to support the struggle for human rights in Israel, and you know them. And it's very important to do it both there in your states, and also if you have any influence to support the struggle in Israel.
Yeah, if I can touch on that really quickly, because I'm really glad that you brought this up, Moria. We at CMEP have made a very easy way for you to sign on to this legislation that Moria pointed out. So we're going to post the link in the chat right now, but this is Betty McCollum, Representative Betty McCollum introduced HR 3103, which is the Palestinian Children and Families Act that demands Congress ensure U.S. taxpayer dollars are not used to violate Palestinian human rights or to further annex Palestinian lands in the West Bank. And I think that sort of framing of saying we just want to make sure American U.S. taxpayer dollars is not being used to fund human rights violations allows us to frame it in a way that's clearly about human rights violations rather than entering the Israel-Palestine conflict and wading into those waters more entirely. So we're going to put a link in the chat. And if you would like to fill out a letter to your congressperson, you basically, or to your representative, you just fill out your name and your email. And this is a really palpable way that as Americans, we can show that we are not in support of child detaining and sort of try to fight back against this 2 kids a day. And now I did not mean to steal any thunder from you, David. I would love to hear kind of your response to this.
I think Moria said it all. It's very clear.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean.
Okay. The kind of the next question is, has the number of Palestinian children who have been arrested and detained increased in recent months? As we've seen, the uptick in violence and the escalation of violence has been worse in 2023 than it has been pretty much since the second Intifada. So are we seeing these numbers of detainees actually increase with this year as it goes on?
I don't have numbers and data for the recent months. We do have a strong feeling that there is increasing in East Jerusalem. In East Jerusalem, there is every day, we are hearing terrible stories about really young 12, 13 boys that have been detained and been, really been attacked by the police or the army, and that use a lot of violence and brutally against them. But we don't have numbers. We are generally speaking, we are speaking about like each moment there is 200 kids that have been detained in every minutes that we're speaking, some of them for a long term, some of them for a very short term. And every year there is like 1,000, as David said, 1,000 in the West Bank and 1,000 in East Jerusalem. The number are not stable. I mean, they are up and down, but in the long term, it's stable. It's those number every time, every year, more or less. Sorry. I think because it's late, I'm forgetting my vocabulary, my grammar, my everything.
It's very late
our best
to use your second language. Okay, we have kind of another question, which is related to the International Criminal Court, the Hague. And clearly this sort of action has been deemed by some as a violation of human rights. It's touched on in the video in the movie as a previous IDF military officer says, we don't relate to being called that. Can you touch on a little bit how the international community reflects on what's happening here and on these child detainees? Is it a legal action internationally, or is it technically illegal?
I don't understand the question. If it's illegal, you ask if those practices that been showing in the movie are illegal or legal?
Yeah, the question.
If you're asking us, it's of course it's illegal, and there is a question whether it's a crime against humanity. But it's also raised in the movie that there is this argument that on those number and those quantity and those practice, it is a crime against humanity. But in Israel, because there is no law in the West Bank, there is only the military law. So, the official of Israel would say it's still legal. It's under the security necessity. And that's why most of the Israeli public are still thinking that those kids are terrorists and we are just defending ourselves and catch them when they are young. This is some of the reaction that we are hearing. But the international community is very, very important. We do believe that there is a need to intervention into the international community, of course, and also by on the legal term. And I saw that somebody asked in the chat, I think something about the ICC or something like this. We are not there. We, as an organization, we are not there. But I know that there is another organizations in Israel that already prepared the paper and the data and the numbers, because it's very important that it won't stay inner issue that only a minor, a few people know about it and discuss it. It's supposed to be something that it's abroad.
Yeah, thank you. And maybe our final question, I want to actually touch on something very quickly, which is just to reiterate David's point from earlier that he gets asked this question over and over about where the footage came from for his documentary, but that a lot of it is very sensitive. So we can't touch really on where that footage came from because it's sensitive. But I just want to expand this conversation out a little bit. In the film, we really focus on sort of a group of friends and a kind of small community, specifically those in Aida camp that's really affected by child detaining. But I would just love to hear kind of from your experience, David, and also from yours, Moria, how this issue affects not just children and families, but the Palestinian society at large, and a little bit more about how this is affecting the larger culture here, not just individual families and their children that are detained.
Well, it's in the film, but I can just clear it a little bit. Neri Ramati says in the film that the arrest of kids basically is what brings to break the Palestinian spirit, the Palestinian villages, the Palestinian spirit, basically. And that's how it works. They're taking, at the moment, there are probably around 15 kids, 15 young boys between the age of 14 or 13 to 18 from Aida camp in prison at the moment. So when you take such a large number of kids from a village, you basically break it. Of course you break it. You break their spirit, you break their resistance. And that's what it's actually, that's what they're trying to do. We are trying to do as Israelis, by the way. We are part of it. It's very important to say we are part of it. We live here, we're paying taxes, we're part of this horrible situation. And so that's how it works. And basically, there is a theory which said that most of the kids, 99% or 95 or 99% of the kids who are being taken to prison or being arrested live within 1 kilometer distance of 1 kilometer from a settlement. So the army is going to those places, to those villages, to those refugee camps, especially there where there might be a friction with the settlers. And so, of course, it affects the whole society. I mean, when a mother is seeing her boy being taken in the middle of the night, she cannot do anything. Basically, she can't do anything. The mother or father, when their brothers watch them being taken away with handcuffs on their hands, usually behind their back, with eyes closed, and going through humiliated, and of course being treated like they're treating them. So yes, it affects the whole society, and in Israel as well. I mean, it goes back to us. The violence is part of our society. We send our kids to the military when they turn 18. We are part of it. We're the fuel in a way. And so yes, I mean, it's a very sad situation. And the most important is that, I mean, that's also why I made a film. I wanted to show, to put a light on the Palestinian children, to show that there are kids who are basically losing their childhood. They don't have a childhood. The Palestinian kids don't have a childhood. Most of them, many of them, let's say, many of them spend their best years in prison, which is absurd, which is crazy. That society is being built on children who are going to prison. And yes, so.
Just a small thing to add, that in the movies that we see that the children are criminalized each other, right? This practice of taking kids for that they will whisper, they will criminalize others, is something that makes the Palestinian society, very fragile, and with a lot of, instead of building trust, it's destroying the trust between the inside the community and the small villages, because everybody knows that if somebody from your family is being interrogated by the intelligence or by the police, he is a lot of pressure and a lot of threaten and a lot of violence was used against him. And probably if he knows something, probably he will say to it's make all the Palestinian society so weak. And this is one of the purpose for doing that. Really, because I think that Muhammad in the movie he's saying that one of the interrogator, he was threatened on him that he will kill his father or his mother, a lot of time they are threatened that they will take their license of work, or if they need medical treatment, they will avoid from the parents to take if the child will not confess or will not criminalize other. So this is one of the other effects that on the society.
Yeah, thank you both so much for answering that. For those who are wondering where you can watch the documentary now that it has finished, and for those who want to share it, there's a Vimeo page that allows you to watch the video and share it with friends. And it's, if very simply, if you Google 2 Kids a Day, it's easy to find, and then you can support the work and support this project. So I'd love to kind of just open the floor finally for any final words from you, Moria, and from you, David, before we close this session out.
Of course, I want to thank you, Lorraine, and all your partners. And thank you for watching the movie and taking your time to focus on this issue. And I really see it as a saying of supporting the issue and supporting the struggle and supporting us. And thank you for that. And we will be very happy to be in touch in the future. In our next, we will be in the States probably in November, me and David maybe, in a new project that we are doing on child detention. And we would love to see you there.
Well, yeah, thank you. Thank you for watching the film. Thank you for listening to us. And spread the word. Talk about the Palestinian children. They need you. They need the world. Seriously. They need the world to listen, to know, to hear, to open their eyes, to open our eyes. I mean, yeah. So thank you.
Thank you both so much for shedding a light on the cycle of violence that the harm of child detention can cause on both Israeli and Palestinian society. This documentary was so honest and raw and so hugely important. So thank you for, as you put it, shedding a light on Palestinian children. It's so necessary. So thank you again. Thank you all for joining us. And please remember that if you haven't yet, there's still action that American citizens can take by supporting McCollum's legislation, and email us to get more information, or we can send that kind of out to your community. We need to kind of see this situation change. So thank you again, Moria and David. Wishing you all the best and a very nice good night to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.